Hey, what's up, PTX fam? This is Shiblord here, joined by the one and only Bran for our weekly community AMA here on this beautiful August the 22nd, 2022 at 8 p.m. UTC or whatever time it might be in your time zone. This is our way to answer any questions that you guys might have, go over any information that has recently occurred, go over what's to come, and also, of course, be that direct line of communication to the community on a weekly basis so that you guys get to hear our voice and vice versa every single week in order for us to best facilitate everything for you guys there. We have a lot of great news and I guess different news. So variety of different things building up here. We'll kind of go into each and every one of that there. So I'll just start off with the big news here before I post the main announcement in the Discord channels. So you guys will get a little teaser, little head start on everything there. Is we are going to launch tomorrow. That'll be our date of launch. There'll be claims going on tonight. So that'll be at about 11 p.m. UTC, just in a couple hours. We should have our DApp brought up onto the website and their claims should be there. Hey, shout out to the 70 people in here. Shout out to every single one of you. I'll just go into that there. But once that DApp goes live, you will just claim. And how is that going to work? You have a PPTX token, the presale PTX token. You will get a one-to-one exchange for the PTX token plus 5% of whatever you have. The contract's already built in to do it for you, so you don't have to worry too much about that. You will just claim and you will get that token. Now, these will not be rebasing until we go live tomorrow. So we will end up going live tomorrow at 6 p.m. UTC, and we are going to launch on the one, the only Pancake Swap. I know. Pancakes are okay though. So why are we on Pancake Swap? I guess maybe Brian wants to go into that, but I can go into it a little bit as well. I'll let you go actually.
Yeah, no worries. So obviously, I've dropped a bit in the main chat, right? And a lot of the things we've had recently in development is I'm not going to sit there and force blame on anyone else. Not going to do that at all. But one thing that we've obviously been clear on is there's been a few delays, and we're quite transparent every time we've had a delay. First was the original contracts and the missing dev, if you weren't aware. And then we obviously had to delay pre-sale, which then delayed launch, right? So essentially, what's happened is everything was fine. There's no conflicts with partners. There's nothing wrong there. It's all about time, right? And one thing that was concerning for myself is that time. If people are just sitting there on tokens, nothing's happening. Okay, we gave that extra 5%, right? But that was for the initial delay. What we didn't want to do is then have to rely on more third-party scheduling. Now, a lot of the time with the token, we've had to rely on third-party scheduling, right? Whether that be development teams, whether that be anything else along them lines. So what we're going to do is we're initially going to launch on PancakeSwap. If you're worried about the dumps and the issues there, don't. Our liquidity doesn't rebase. Although we can turn it on and off, because what we're going to do is obviously adjust. So what we don't want is the liquidity to get too diluted. So we're going to see how it goes, obviously, and then we've got the ability to either let it rebase a little bit to build them tokens, so then it doesn't cause a negative effect on all the holders where there's too little tokens in the liquidity, right? But what it does allow for is them initial tokens that PCS collect in fees and keep on their decks as TVL. A big confusion there is, yes, it may look like liquidity, but the what it is essentially the PTX. I'll use PTX for an example, right? So the small percentage PancakeSwap get that PTX and then that BNB, right? They leave it on their decks as quote unquote liquidity, or it goes into a wallet, right? It depends. So what happens is over time that rebases, and each month it's essentially doubling, right? If you look at generic rebase tokens, so where their fees on the first month are only 0.003% per transaction, if you go 6 months down the line, that has doubled 6 times. So you're then looking at 1 to 2% over them 6 months. So where initially they only had $100,000 in PTX, for example, they've now got a couple of million, right? So the way that we're going to look into this is we're going to launch on PCS purely for time and consistency. We want to get building. We can't. Obviously, our investments have been working in the background. The money has been put to use, but we want to get working. We want to get building, and I'll let Shib give a few updates on that after. And the partnership is not off the table, just nothing like that at all. But what we want to do is just get live, get going, get moving, and then that's something we can either look to in the future to do as a secondary DEX to list on, or we can continue if things are going well, right? So if you're worried about PCS dumps, don't. It's going to happen anywhere you list. Now, the reason why we've picked PCS over any other competitor is simple, right? Limitations. Now, one thing we're doing for the entire token, if you've attended any AMAs, is future-proof the token, right? If we decide to list on something like ApeSwap, which has 150 times less daily volume, essentially what you're having to do then is shield the DEX and shield your token. So not only are you then having to teach people how to use a DEX they're not familiar with, you're then having to teach them how to use a DEX and then buy your token. So essentially it turns a one-step procedure into a two-step procedure. And if people are already on the edge, they're not going to bother. I saw that with one of the tokens before who limited themselves by not listing on PancakeSwap. So essentially what we're doing here is we're looking at the options. Of course, you've got the marketing side, you've got the partnership side, right? But then you have the limitations of it not being the largest DEX on the platform. And I think limiting ourselves in that sense outweighs, the marketing or anything else that would have come for it. Because what we can do is use that money that we were going to use to list for other, things, whether we put in investments, whether we put that into marketing, whether we put that into community. It's not what we expected. However, things change over time, and we have to obviously keep moving without just sitting there with our, hands under our bum and just waiting. Because essentially what I didn't want to do and what Neil didn't want to do is come into an AMA today and say, hey, we got no update for everyone. That's not what we wanted to do. So he was proactive and said, hey, let's get live, let's get going, and let's stop people obviously asking when launch. But yeah, that's not obviously the negative things. If you look at the announcements now, Neil has just dropped the announcement explaining everything. So I'll go over that briefly. The claims will open in 3 hours' time. So at 11 p.m. UTC tonight, you'll be able to claim your regular Protocol X token through the D app. When you claim, you'll receive a 1-to-1 plus the 5% as promised. And the contract address there is to add to your wallet. Now, we will be going live for trading on 6 p.m. UTC tomorrow. This will be on PancakeSwap. Do not try buying, selling, transferring, or anything of the sort, because it will be locked. The token, essentially, until it goes live, will be useless. It won't rebase. You won't be able to add liquidity. You won't be able to do anything with, right? That's obviously a security measure, so people can't add liquidity prior to us doing it. So just once you claim, wait, and then the token goes live at 6 p.m. If you want any community giveaways, I'm going to be collecting the wallets tonight. So please keep an eye out on DMs. I'm going to be collecting the wallets, and then I'm going to be passing them to Shib or myself or CK, and we're going to do a multi-send to send everyone all their winnings prior to launch, so we can get everyone on the same level. If you won prior to launch, you're not then having to wait a couple of days, because I understand not everyone can just sit there and bag hold their entire tokens. Maybe people need the money, right? So we're going to get that all sorted tonight, so please keep an eye out on your DMs. Of course, why PancakeSwap? Well, the mystery partner can still happen in the future. We want to stick to timelines, and we don't want any further delays. And the benefits of the mystery partner swap is good, but nothing that causes any loss of sleep if we launch on PancakeSwap. So please have a read of that. I'll pass it over to Neil to talk about what's to come and some developmental updates as well.
Yeah, so a lot of great information there. So thank you, Brand, for giving up all that information as well. Hey, what do I see here? 90 people in our community. Shout out to all of you. Please be a friend, tell the world, get this word out here. I love having a large audience as well. So as Brandon said, we do have a lot to come. So PCS is what it is. Okay, our liquidity doesn't rebase like what Brand went into, so it does offset some of the issues. And then we should have our DEX live sooner than I maybe expected after our previous developmental team vanished, right? So a lot of good things could be happening here in the future. So next steps here, what happens from here? Well, rebases begin. Investments have already started, and they will continue to go from here. And then we'll start developing the XShare NFTs as soon as possible. The Solar team is going to be building those, get that going as quick as humanly possible, obviously with good quality on that end, of course. And then we start just developing and building. So we have a whole, several different things that we're looking to implement here in the near future, and then definitely into the long term. So as we get some of these things live, the XShares for me is something that's going to be very, very important for the protocol, and I genuinely look forward to getting those live. I think those would be a fantastic addition to what we have going on already with the rebase tokens, the sustainability variables, and all that good stuff that Brad and I have talked about in 35 plus AMAs. So all that is great there. But that being said, then we can ideally get our decks live here sooner than expected. I don't know quite a timeline just yet, but I will give you one as soon as possible. From there, it opens up even more opportunities. So then we start working with the Magic guys to see if we can get some vaults implemented. Then we start with the, maybe a paired LP with our native token to MDB. Then we start looking at different, get the X swap token out there and start establishing the farms. That really allows us to expand our personal atmosphere, and then it also allows us to expand into our partners' atmosphere because my partnership with Ashore is directly linked to that DEX. So then we can start marketing that, start vetting different projects, bringing them in, gives us some good work to do on our end, but also allows for that actual growth via the DEX, via the revenue share NFTs, and via whatever we are building into in the future that you guys will soon find out. So all in all, quite just like what Brand said, we're not willing to wait some undefined period of time to get an update from this potential other exchange swap partner, right? So this morning I did get like a little bit of a reaction from them on Telegram, but it wasn't even enough to give me a date or a theoretical time or to do anything really, and it's just not fair. It's not fair to you guys who have put money in last week. I'm not going to sit here and make you guys wait 2 weeks? I don't know at this point, right? I'm just not doing it. It's simply unfair to everybody involved. So we have taken different precautions to make sure that the kind of liquidity dump doesn't necessarily happen to us like it has with others. Also keep in mind with our 400 and something holders, we don't quite have the same exact issue that recently happened to that one project that we all have in our mind, right? They're a huge volume project. They're big. They're very, very large. So with us, if we list on PCS and we decide, hey, it's going to actually be better to list somewhere else here in a little bit, no harm, no foul. We move off and then we go from there. Now, if we lock the liquidity on PCS, that would be a different story, right? So I got to kind of think about all that. That does give people some security, but it also takes away some ability for us to adjust if needed. But if we do like what PCS is doing and we kind of all figure out, community and us come together and say, yeah, you know what, we're okay with this for now, we'll lock it on there as well. I don't really care for that. I don't care against that, I should say. I think that's a good security precaution regardless, having a locked liquidity. So lots of different things coming up. We have, in the next couple of days, we have claims tonight. We have the protocol going live tomorrow. We'll have our first major burn of any unused circulating supply that'll go live at launch as well. So whatever that 50 million allocation was, whatever has not have been distributed via the pre-sales and liquidity, and obviously the team allocation is the same and the treasury allocation is the same. Whatever excess that is, sending it right to the dead wallet. Immediately step one. That's going to be the first and foremost thing that I do after I push the liquidity to where it needs to go and get the protocol live. So that'll be a good little first step. We already have I believe now I have 6 different trading bot strategies working. I've already talked with the Godfather yesterday. I'll get the MDB investment going here. Ideally, before we go live tomorrow, we can announce that as well and really start bringing our partners into fruition with each other so that we can all kind of, commingle. I even had another DM from Chris over at Vault Finance about just having our contract pulled to their system as well, where it's still listed on PCS, for example. So things like that could be some beneficials to our beneficiaries to our partnerships here coming up in the next couple of days, really, hours, days, etc. All very, very exciting stuff. We all want this protocol to start going live. I'm not going to wait 2 weeks. We got a lot to build and a lot to work towards, and I'm genuinely excited to get all that going and get us moving on our end as well.
Cool. Also, a couple of more things as well. Just a few side quests, really. So as you guys know, we've got a partnership with Club Monte Carlo. Over the next couple of weeks, Diamond can confirm, we're going to have our own tablecloth on there and stuff. So it's going to be a bit more PTX themed, all the sponsored events and etc. We're also looking into some sort of, not sort of side quests, but something that are very interested in doing by having our own sort of betting platform. Now, in context of that, it would be in a way with community styled games where we can also host free roll stuff, but also a place for people to go, which could insinuate further burn. Now, obviously, we know the risks, and we recommend we're gonna definitely take precaution with this on how we do it. We don't want people wasting money and stuff, so we're probably going to set limits as such. But what we want to do essentially is we're going to work with Club Monte Carlo to eventually, and that's something that is quite longer term because you can't build them overnight, have our own sort of poker platform, have our own sports betting platform, which you can use PTX in itself. You'll also be able to use PTX on ChainBet once they go live, which is another great feature. And also, in regards to investments, Shib, did you want to touch base on the Ego investment?
Yeah, so the Ego investment formalized here. So for day one, actually technically day -3, we've had 200,000 go directly into investments. This is what we ran on from the protocol, and that's what has already been established. So we have 100,000 into the Ego trading bot. Ours wasn't in, but last week it got 10% on its gain last week. We weren't in it yet, so I guess it's irrelevant. But nevertheless, Ego's money is in there, ready to work, and it's already been all loaded as of this morning on their end. And then we have another 100,000 split between. Let me go through different varieties here. I have a huge Excel sheet as well, just in case we're all curious. Anyway, so we have a Bitcoin swing trader. We have an Ethereum swing trader, and then also one for a couple altcoins. We have Solana and AVAX, both swings. And then we have one that'll be an Ethereum scalping trader. Obviously, it's a little bit less than that. That's a little bit more volatile, a little bit more risk. But those are the 5 different strategies divided up in a variety of different percentages for the other 100,000 of investment that's already been put into place as of last, I think Friday, we got that in. And on our first official trade that closed, we went up $5,100 with the Bitcoin swing one. So that's pretty good there. It's a good little start. We made $5,100 in revenue before we ever went live. So I call that kind of a victory on all fronts there. So those will all be working continuously. I have a variety of different already strategies written out. I still have to finalize exactly the distribution of where the revenue will go into all of these various things here. But the different aspects that we will have revenue go towards is compounding back into the trading bots, the treasury, a buyback and burn, of course, and into the liquidity management pool. So those are the 4 things that I need to divvy up different percentages from the revenue that comes in. Just on the top of my brain, what I'm thinking right now is using Egos primarily as a buyback and burn, and then trying to let these other ones really work over several months and let them compound, mostly have a little bit go to the other aspects, but really want it to be working for itself, because we've seen with some backlogging where their gains could be even more than what our rebase protocol would have if we were 1.77% daily APR for a full year, right? So it's possible. And if we can generate that sort of revenue and let that compound and grow, that really sets us up in the long term to kind of navigate some of the different things that can come up over time. So those are the various things that we're working on my end. That's kind of what I've been doing all morning, is setting up different charts so we can get the reports out accordingly and working on the investment side there. I have a feeling that's going to be kind of my go-to as we navigate through all of these here, which I'm perfectly fine with. I personally love the numbers side of it, and I love doing the reports as well. So we have a lot going on in the investments. We will do an MDB purchase for their investment for our future liquidity pair on our own decks. And again, that'll be done ideally before tomorrow when we go live. I'm just working out the final numbers on that, and then we can announce that as well. But I want my whole team to be on the same page with what we elect to invest in for that secondary LP. But I think that'll be a good thing to have as a strong secondary LP on our own decks once we get that live. So if we buy the tokens now, the tokenomics are set up in MDB, for which that these tokens are not going to be cheaper in 2 weeks, for example. Every time you buy and sell, it removes some from circulation and the token price goes up. How all that works, go back and listen to the AMA with the Godfather at MDB, because they can explain it much more than I can, or check out their website. Of course, I have all their socials in the official partner channel on our Discord. But I like them as a partner, and I really want to get that strong partnership reaffirmed very, very clearly for all involved, because I think that'll be good for all of us as we begin to move forward through the different aspects of this protocol here. So investments are going well. Launch is happening tomorrow, and overall, I think we're pretty good, right? We haven't had an AMA since we closed the pre-sale, have we?
No, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. After we did exactly 30 AMAs, my throat needed a couple of days off, man. It got a lot. I mean, I kept saying the same things over and over again to the point where I forgot what like we was actually doing on the last one. But yeah, we've had time to charge up. We've been working with the dev team closely in the background. Obviously, certain aspects we're still working on. We're still working on the audit. The audit preliminary report came back. There was a few fixes, but luckily enough, any major or minor issue can be fixed. There was nothing that had anything that would have hurt or affected the token. So Kinsey and the team, getting that sorted so we can get the final report live. Luckily enough, our contract is upgradable, right? So obviously there's them limitations when you don't have an upgradable contract, things like that. If there is an issue, then you have to completely redeploy. But luckily enough, with the introduction of XShares and obviously any future abilities for the token, right, it had to be upgradable anyway. But luckily enough, what it does, it allows us to work on our security better. The audit itself is obviously a smaller scale audit, but it's a good way to touch base on security prior than passing it over to a larger audit. We're thinking Certic, however, we're still discussing options. But we're like 90% sending it to Certic, but we're just getting some recommendations from other people, our partners as well, on the best way to get an audit. What we don't want to do is overspend on an audit when we can get a more reliable one with the same sort of ranking, if you know what I mean. But that should be coming live very soon. We're hoping to get that pushed tonight. But what we'll do now is that's pretty much all the updates, right? So I'll go through and answer and pass some questions over to Shib. But I'll answer one right now because it's easy to answer, right? So someone asked, why are you using PancakeSwap? Why are you not using something like Chrome Finance, etc.? We're obviously going to evaluate in the future about adding liquidity to smaller launch pads or smaller sort of dexes, right? The reason why and the way I'll explain it will make sense. If you're listing on a smaller launch or a smaller dex, not only are you having to teach people how to buy your token, you're then having to, essentially shield that dex and get people to understand what that dex is. With PancakeSwap, it is the daddy of BSC. If you're interested in BSC or you trade on BSC, you know what PancakeSwap is, right? So what we don't want to do is face any future limitations. And I'll take this back to when I said about our own dex and comparing it to another dex, right? With initial dexes, if you're launching on a new dex, this dex goes through a massive wave of hype. There is going to be high volume on there. There is going to be high, amount of people trading on there. But then you're also, so us would be relying on them to market their deck strategically, right? So not only are we having to market our own token, we're then having to rely on a third party to market their decks. And that's not, obviously, I'm not shading any dexes or any smaller dexes, right? Because we're going to launch our own decks as well. And that's exactly why I said we're not going to put all of our initial liquidity onto our decks. We want to build it up first, because you can't just launch a dex and then it gets millions and millions of dollars in volume. Even second place, which is ApeSwap, right? ApeSwap is probably the second most common BSC dex, and that only has 2 million volume compared to PancakeSwap's 282 million volume daily. So essentially what we don't want to do, and that's exactly how we've built the token, is run into any limitations. Now, that's not saying these dexes won't get larger. That's not saying that these dexes, don't have the ability. Of course, we're looking to launch on multiple dexes, have liquidity in multiple places, especially with our partners, and work with future people. But in a nutshell, it's not about not believing in other tokens, because every single time we speak about partners, 9 times out of 10, the smaller tokens, if you look at, and when I say smaller tokens, I'm not saying it in a rude way. I mean it as a smaller token, right? They haven't got hundreds of thousands of holders. They're not sitting at 500 million market cap. So essentially, they are a smaller token, right? But when you have projects like Ego, who have outstanding trading bots, when you have projects like MDB, who have outstanding teams, outstanding products, essentially, these are usually the better projects. But what you don't want to limit yourself on is putting all of your liquidity into a DEX and limiting your token. It doesn't matter how much faith you have in other people, you don't want to have to rely on them, right? So of course we're super interested in working with other tokens for secondary liquidity and listing on their DEX, especially if we believe in their product, right? But what we don't want to do is limit you guys or have any possible altercations in the future regarding listing on other dexes and not having a main source to buy from. The same way we're not putting all of our liquidity in our own dex, right? It's not against anyone else. It's just about being as flexible as possible and not having limitations in a way. But I'll move on to the next question. Give me one moment. Do we have any partnerships? You can see our partnerships, they're all in the Discord. I'll get one for Nil. Give me one moment, just finding a question. So if we want to individually trade some of our personal funds using the same terms of bots you are using, are you willing to share the bot details?
Not necessarily. I can give you kind of generalizations. So trading bots are an interesting thing. Some out there are better than others, of course. So I would definitely advise doing a ton of research if you want to get them in or into them personally, and kind of go from there. But I will say, like, some of the easier to find ones, like the KuCoins of the world, not great. Why don't I want to tell everyone what the exact strategies are? Because then everyone does it, right? So this gives us a little bit of a competitive advantage until everybody gets caught up to where maybe we are currently. So I think that'll be my answer to that one. If anyone's okay, yeah,
it completely makes sense though, doesn't it? It makes sense. Essentially, if we told everyone what we're doing, then what makes us unique, right? A major part of our strategy is being open from day one about investments. Now we will tell you exactly what we're doing, but we're not going to say the exact names of the bots or the companies we're using, right? Because that defeats the object. How are we going to grow if everyone else can literally just copy and paste us? It essentially works in that way. So we're not gatekeeping. It's nothing like that. One, we don't want to be responsible for any losses that you guys partake in without doing adequate research. And two, it's obviously a competitive edge. If you show all your cards in a poker game, you're going to lose, right? So we have to have that competitive edge to build the token, to grow the token, to get them revenue streams in. Otherwise, everyone will just copy us, right? So if someone's got, $1 million, they could just chuck it into the same method we're using, say, hey, we're doing better than them. So we're obviously gatekeeping in the sense, but it's only for the benefit of the community. Ari, yes, I'm actually going to ask that now because I haven't seen really many more questions. If anyone does want to come up on stage, I know Ari likes to ask multiple questions. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll grab you on stage, of course. Where's Ari? I know his hand's going to go up first, so I'll look for that.
Yeah, we're waiting for that. If you guys want to speak live, just simply request to speak, and we will bring you up live, no problem at all. Or, of course, post to the AMA Questions Weekly channel. We'll answer them live as well.
Yeah, in a nutshell, we just wanted to give everyone an update that things are moving. We're working with the Club Monte Carlo in the background. We're going to progress on that side of things. The DEX is being built as we speak. And then the solo team are going to work on the XShares and getting all of that live with, a good interface, and we can get WOX on that as well. The D app is going to go live. I'm not sure if it's going to go live instantly, but Kinsu said there's a little Easter egg on there. So keep an eye out on that. I'm not going to spoil it. Whoever finds it first, I'm going to give them $100 in PTX. So if you find it, drop it in main chat and tag me. The Easter egg will be quite obvious. But yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that once the D app goes live. Just a little bit of fun, instead of the D app just being basic. But once the D app is live, there'll be an Easter egg. Keep an eye out for it. But yeah, if you've got any questions, raise your hand, and we'll bring you up. Or if you don't want to speak, drop them AMA questions. Let's have a little look. Ari, feel free to come up if you've got some questions, mate, that no one else has raised their hand. Do pre-sale holders receive an X share after a month of holding? I seem to recall reading that, but cannot recall. So, the way that will work is if you purchase the maximum wallet. So, if you purchase $15,000, you will receive a legendary X share once they launch. The stipulation in that is you have to hold the base amount you purchased. So initially, it will be 250,000 tokens. As long as your tokens are the same at the time of airdrops, essentially you will receive the legendary X share, right? But if you do sell under that threshold, you won't receive the legendary X share. So you're still able to sell rebases as such, and so forth and so on. But yeah, if you dump your whole bag, then obviously you won't get one. How many BNBs will be the initial liquidity pairing on PancakeSwap? Ship.
Yeah, so we're going to do 75,000 and 75,000 paired BNB to PTX. That'll be the initial established one up there. I've actually kind of considered maybe putting that at 100, but I think we're going to do 75, 75 unless we find some other information. We just decided on the switch here like 30 minutes before we went on the AMA, so we will go into that as well, but at least 75, 75.
So that'll be an initial $150,000 in liquidity. Obviously, the tax is built into that liquidity as well, which is great. So, worst wishes. I answered your question shortly, but I'll read it out again. You guys said that you didn't want to give away the websites that you guys got the trading bots from. Does that mean that you guys didn't develop your strategies? If this is true, then you can't people use the bots if they find that website? Obviously, people are free to do their own research. We're not going to confirm and deny what we use. However, we've never said that we're developing our own trading bot. We've always said that we're using strategies that have been proven, right, with a track record. So essentially, everything is based on low to high risk and distributed accordingly. One of you said it was a website. Well, essentially, an API is, you need to run a bot on an API, right? So essentially, that's run on a website, but you don't just buy them from a specific website. However, we're not going to sit there and just give out the websites, right? As I said, that if we just sit there and said, hey, this is what we use and this is what we use, and hey, everyone go use everything we're using, then it defeats the object of the protocol and essentially just gives, our competitors say, hey, let's do that. They're making money on it. We're going to do it as well and advertise, right? If we just keep giving out what we're doing, worst, which is it's not a website that sells a service. It's a developer that sells the service. I'm not going to keep asking questions about it because I know you're just trying to get more information about it. The strategies that we use, right, they are trading bots. They're not developed by us. They're strategies that were created and are API based on centralized exchanges. We are using these strategies because they've been proven over, months, and they are strategies that are being personally tested by members of the team. So essentially, when we are using these, we're using a calculated risk based on their performance that have happened and the performance over time. If we just sat there and told everyone the sort of bots we're using or the sort of strategies we're using, essentially it renders them useless because we wouldn't have any competitive advantage, and the protocol, yes, it'd still make money, but everyone would just copy what we're doing, right? So then it defeats the purpose of us being one of the first tokens to essentially use bot strategies to build in revenue externally. Worst wishes. I'm not going to keep asking questions about the bots because I know you're just trying to get more information about them. We're not going to release who developed them or what develops or what websites or APIs we're using. And I've stated that before. So hopefully you can understand why we're not doing that as a business. We can't just tell everyone everything we're doing. We're as transparent as possible. When we're telling you guys what's going where, and how we're using the strategies, right? Yes, if it's a bot, it's going to be created by a developer. So yes, you'd have to purchase the strategy or the subscription or the API off them. You can't just, download a free trading bot. So yes, it's obviously developed by people who have extensive experience in trading and extensive experience in bot creation. No, these are all external. However, I'm going to move on from the subject because I believe I'm just repeating myself at this
Yeah,
point.
you are. We're good there. We'll move on. so, so yeah, again, all Brand's trying to say is, hey, just enjoy the ride. You're here for PTX. If you want to go invest into trading bots, do your own research on that end, just like what we did as well. And shout out to anyone who does. All right. So let's see here. From you, by the way, if anyone wants to speak live, feel free to. I don't know if you were joking, Ari, but I try to bring you up on the stage as well.
Ari's
Or
on this now, so yeah, Ari,
okay,
feel
there
free
he
to
is.
go away.
Good.
The real question is Bran ready?
Yes, I'm ready, Ari. Go for it. As long as you don't ask the same question 4 times.
Crap, where's the move to audience button? Okay, so this trading box, they sound great. They sound absolutely great for you guys at the top, at the team, make a ton of money, utilize it all internally. But what about to the investors? How does this benefit us?
Because the money won't be used personally. I think that's a bit of a misconception. So any money that's generated from the bot isn't just going to the team. We're not just paying ourselves from it. What we're looking to do is bring all of the expenses, so whether that be marketing, whether that be developmental costs, whether that be building a game or developing a game, just what we're looking to do is compound our external revenue sources, build them up to where they're making a good ROI that can be sustainable, whether that covers all of the team pay, whether that covers all of the developmental costs, whether that covers all the marketing, right? What we want to do is not use, well, obviously we're going to have to use it at some point, right? But what we don't want to do is just drain the treasury, because what a lot of projects do, right, is they just rely on their treasury and then end up eating it, especially when you've got low volume, because every project goes through a stage where they'll have a week or two or a month with low volume, right? So the fees aren't generating as they should, the treasury isn't building as it should, right? So what we're looking to do is, yes, we'll probably have them days where we have high volume and, probably an influx of investors, right? But what we're looking to do is sort of future proof having to ever say, hey, we need to dump our tokens to pay for this or dump our tokens to pay for that. So none of the bots aren't just going to go to the team. I don't want that to be a misconception there. There's no sort of, hey, this bot we're using the treasury for is going to go to team directly, or if it makes a bunch of money, we're going to keep it. It's not like that at all. And I think especially with Neil being super transparent with the reports, we'll probably have certain reports that say, hey, this made this much and this is going there and this is what we're going to use the profits for, right? Because essentially what we want to do is bring everything from the outside in rather than the inside out. We don't want to have to drain the treasury to pay for marketing or dump tokens to pay for whatever we decide to develop, or X swap needs an upgrade, so now we need to sell some PTX. We don't want to do that, right? So essentially what we want to do is bring everything from the outside in, feed the protocol, and everything will feed the protocol.
And if you are a numbers guy, I just pulled up my little Excel sheets that I kind of put together this morning. I think you'd be a fan of all the information that we putting out, at least on a bi-weekly basis, if not a weekly basis.
I'm an asking questions kind of guy. So, as a follow-up to that, I have seen in the main chat actual posts from team members showing, here's how good my trading bot is doing. Is this a different trading bot than what the protocol is using? Can you explain?
The protocol has multiple trading bots. That is just one that we're using personally. The reason why we're not promoting them as such is we're just saying, hey, this is what we're doing personally. There was a lot of topic about the trading bots, so we're just basically showing the community, hey, this is our trade, this is our personal ones, because we want to show that, hey, we're not just using the protocol's money to make money. We're actually backing our own strategies with our own personal funds. I mean, Shib can back that up himself. The team are backing their own strategy with their own money, not just the protocol money. So there is obviously some team members that are invested because the strategy was built by the team, right? It wasn't just picked off the internet and said, hey, you should invest into these 6 things because they're great. It wasn't that. It was about trial and error. And obviously Shib has had, quite a while with trading bots and looking at past history, right? So in regards to trading bots, I don't think everyone should be too concerned about them, right? Look, it's just another way for external revenue source. I don't want PTX to be completely absorbed by trading bots already. And like, the AMA, obviously I love answering questions, and I really don't mind, but I don't want the trading bots to be the main focus of PTX, right? What we're just doing essentially is getting external revenue sources so we can help build the protocol. What we're focusing on is XShares. What we're focusing on is XSwap, right? So these bots, obviously, they have risks to them, but it's a way of making the treasury work. So essentially what we could do is build that treasury instead of draining it, right? So we can use that for TVL on the XSwap. We can use that to build the token. But yeah, so some obviously team members, have personal bots, but that's just our personal bots. That has nothing to do with the token.
And that I think highlights the question that I was asking, is that it's under our understanding that the ego bots are only available to DeFi protocols, and that the trading bots are for the protocol and not for personal gain. But then we've seen pictures posted of what appears to be the team having their own trading bots, making themselves money.
That's not an ego trading bot. That's where you're getting confused. The bots that we posted had nothing to do with the ego trading bot.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification.
No worries. I see where you get confused there, but yeah, no, the ego trading bot itself, no, we don't have access to that. We're just using our own strategies, whether it be within. I mean, I've got some strategies that have nothing to do with the protocol, right? It's just our personal investments, and we'll just obviously showing the community that these certain bots do work sometimes. Obviously, there's still a risk to them, but we're just showing that we have our own personal beliefs in the sort of trading methods and the strategies themselves, rather than just relying on the treasury, right? We want to show, hey, we're doing this ourselves because we have faith in it. If people want to go and research trading bots and you want to branch out into it, then obviously do it at your own risk, right? But that's not the main focus of the project. So the project has got the investments, but that's only to feed the project, to build the utility within the project. It's not so we can sit there, make a bunch of money and go to Cancun, for example. It's about using that money to build XSwap, to build XBet, to build anything that we want to do, any games we want to build, integrate into the decks or mini games, or to deliver our roadmap, right? We're just thinking of external ways and building external ways without eating the protocol alive.
Currently, the market conditions are not the most ideal for stability. Are there any plans that the team aims to do to try to generate organic new buyers when within these testy times we find ourselves within?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go into that a little bit here. So many of us who were in DeFi 1 year ago today got to experience something very fantastic where you find a video on YouTube and you hop on into the protocol that's on the YouTube Schiller's video and you make a ton of money, and then you lose all your money because it all crashed there shortly after. So that was last year, right? There was a crazy influx. No matter what happened, you drop a dime and it becomes a dollar, right? So that is not where we are today. And I think the way that we do this today is that grassroots marketing, just the same way that we did the pre-sale stuff, but then try to bring it up a few levels, try to get some other advertisements out there, because right now our audience are those who are already in DeFi primarily. If we run into a bull market and we have a crazy influx of people into crypto, that's when you have to start tapping into the brand new, never invested crypto audience. But they're not getting into crypto right now because the news is telling them that Bitcoin is going to zero and that crypto is dead. We have been here before. This happened in 2018. It's going to happen again this year, right? So once that flip switches, we can then expand the marketing opportunities even further. But I think for now, you really have to start diving into those who are within the space, show them results. If people see what the vision is via results, not just words, that is a natural influx to investors, just very, very innately. And then, of course, trying to go to the crypto conventions, try to get these out to real people, try to network through different partnerships and different associations through others that are out there, and really try to grow the industry as a whole, because right now our audience is already in the space. That's the people that we need to reach to get these out there. As some of the other rebase protocols that maybe have done well or not done well in the past, we can offer them something a little bit different for those who would invest in those kind of protocols, right? So we're doing things differently. If people like it and it works, that's going to bring in a good influx. And then once we navigate through different times, maybe not such, I forget how you word it, but not tense times like we are now, then I think we can really expand very, very quickly from there. But also in a sense, I also don't mind launching in a bear market for a protocol that is naturally inflationary at the beginning, right? That gives us a lot of time to really build and grow a lot of our sustainability variables and really get them refined so that we can eventually handle a larger influx. Because if we had 10,000 holders on day one, that brings a little different issue into play than if we had 500 or 412 or whatever we have here.
Ah, that is true. Will there be any structures built into the protocol to allow backing up price stability during black swan events, such as sudden huge sells or exchanges selling a majority of their liquidity all of a sudden?
All right, so I kind of missed the first part because it was a little bit muffled. Basically, is there anything to prevent large sales? Is that kind of what you're getting at? And then those from the decks?
What I'm saying is there anything to create price stability when there are large sales, not prevent them?
Right. So a lot of that is just general, I guess, tokenomics in a sense, but you're never going to be 100% secure, right? If someone decides to sell 50,000 worth of PTX, that's not going to be a appreciative aspect to the token. We're all very, very clear on that. What it does do, though, is some of that sales tax will go into our into the variety of different distributions that they have there, and it allows us to reinvest accordingly. But we have to prepare for those from day one, which is how we're doing our investment strategy already, and not at month 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 when it's already too late. So what we have to do is we have to keep building on our end in order to try to incentivize those who have a large amount of our tokens to want to hold. But you're never going to find me, and hopefully not anyone from my team, asking or telling people to not sell, because I think that's nonsense. They put money in. If they want to sell, they can sell. This is what they decide to put money into, right? But it's our job to encourage them to want to hold. Maybe if XShares are appealing, then it's good on there. Maybe there's different aspects to the DEX. Maybe there's some other piece of the protocol that has really piqued their interest. That's really our job, to start poking those little buttons and say, hey, I don't want to trap you in forever. I'm not going to try to convince you to hodl your tokens for 1 year with the expectations that you're going to have millions of dollars, because depending on the amount of money you went in with, that's not going to happen, right? So our job here is to create an environment that is positive, try to be a positive, person with the whales as well. Because let's say, whale stacks, who's in the audience, says, hey, I want to sell $100,000 worth of tokens, but hey, that's not going to be good for the protocol, and I have a good relationship with the team. Well, then they can reach out to me and we can start working on OTCs or how to distribute it correctly so that it doesn't hurt the investors. And I think that's just being a human. And we've seen people and other leaders in protocols not do that, even when whales were almost pleading with them to OTC because they did not want to hurt the other investors. So by us being open to those kind of conversations and also orchestrating the strategies from day one to really design revenue from outside that funnels back in indefinitely, that really allows us to get ahead, as well as constant innovation. By the way, revenue share NFTs and a rebase protocol, I don't think you can name one out there except for us, which is fantastic. Having our own decks allows us to kind of progress our own little movement as well. So I look forward to what we're building here, and I'm not really stressing about it, but I do know that we have to be very careful because there could be large sales. And as for PCS dumping, a significant portion of liquidity, we all know what we're talking about there, and I'm not one that's afraid to say names. It just happened to Seifu, right? What's Seifu's differences to Protocol X? One, they've had crazy amounts of volume in the last X amount of months that they've been around, right? Wild amounts. So those DEX fees are very, very high. And that just is what it is. They compound over time within themselves. Additionally, they don't have a mechanism to prevent rebasing within their LP. So with all those different fees within that LP mechanism that's built in a PCS, that token is then rebasing from there. So there's just basically free tokens for the platform to sell off over time, and it's not even their fault. It's just how their system works. So, and I'm not saying safely, that's how PCS works. This is what they do. So it's up to us to offset those impacts that are already built into the system. We know what the system is. So if you don't adjust to the system, then you're adjusting yourself for failure in the very near future. Now, Seifu, crazy volume. They're one of the top dogs in the game. And then also, obviously, rebasing in the LP, not great. I would probably expect that starts changing. Ideally, they'll probably change theirs if I had to guess, because that just sucks for everyone. You know, people went from $12 to what, $4 or $5 or $7 or whatever, almost overnight. That sucks. That's not good. So they'll address that, and we keep, of course, trying to address it before it happens here. Learn from the mistakes, or maybe not even the mistakes. Learn from the occurrences that have happened in the past, and say, hey, how can we help mitigate that so that does not fall on the laps of our investors, because we've already seen it before. And I think that's where the evolution begins, and that's how we continue to go about our business here at PTX.
Do you have a plan to mitigate potential massive sell pressure once the token launches?
So I'll touch base on that really. Yeah, so we're obviously using the price management system or liquidity management system, which is more commonly known as, which Solar are developing. We'll obviously have a set range on that. There will be a formal announcement explaining the liquidity management system. But all we need to do is obviously launch and find the price floor. I think a bigger flaw with tokens is launching and activating it, initially from day one, when essentially you don't know if that's your price floor, right? So we're going to gauge the market, see how it goes, and then integrate the LMS system, build up liquidity for it, and get that activated. So we have many things, we're going to have, buy incentives, we're going to have hold incentives, we're going to have events, we're going to have everything coming out, especially with marketing. It's a broad question. There's so many things we have planned. A lot of announcements will come for anything we want to do. But essentially, the LMS system will help with price stabilization, and it will also help, the longevity and allowing the protocol to be more sustainable. I dropped it in the chat earlier as well, talking about sustainability, is that our rebase token, although that the rewards daily are really good for 12 months, because they're not compounding the entire year at such a high rate, I believe the total percent for the year was, I think, 3,100%. So yes, it's still a decent amount, but it's not crazy where it's about 400,000%, which isn't sustainable, right? So with a 31 times based off initial investment, it's an entire year is not hard to catch up in regards to market cap, right? So if the price stayed same price as it is now, all we'd have to grow is 31 times in market cap, which is only about 50 million market cap, 60 million market cap, which isn't unattainable, right? Whereas if we launch now to match to say, hey, this time in a year, realistically, we're still going to be the same price we launched at, if not higher. If we was at 400,000% APY, you'd have to times that by literally 40,000. So not only a 4,000, so your market cap would have to 4,000 times in that year to be the same price you started with, which isn't sustainable, right? Whereas 31 times, there's much more chance of that being sustainable with the right external revenues, with the right products being released, especially at a low market cap, right? Compared to 400,000 or 800,000%. So sustainability will have a major factor with being able to keep that floor stabilized, because the impact that the tokens on the rebase have won't be as high, especially that we're going to be starting off about a 20% burn or right off the bat. So already the circulating supply and the APY, the APY doesn't drop, but the circulating supply does. So essentially, each month there's not going to be as many tokens going around, which helps. It helps with sustainability. And if we could build on that buy and burn, then I'm not too worried about longevity based on the fact that APY is one of the most realistic in a rebase project.
I may have to go in 5-10ish minutes to attend to another obligation. So to the community and the peanut gallery, prepare your questions, as I will not be occupying our brand's time while my associates try to go and steal the Declaration of Independence. I mean, the liquidity. But one thing that was brought up, Chip, is that you mentioned being able to turn off the rebasing for given wallets. That's potentially a dangerous permission to be able to have, given that one of the main draws to the protocol is the rebasing. Can you give us an affirmation that you will not go against the individual investors and disable rebasing as a sort of retaliatory measure?
Yeah, I'll sit here and affirm with the Declaration of Independence under my right hand that I will not turn off the rebasing at the ill wishes and malicious intent of our poor investors here. So that's not the strategy. That's very, very individualized, and we're transparent about it. But I'm not going to turn rebases off. So no worries about that one. That's a great question, though, honestly, for real.
And Ari, yeah, that is a great question. I just want to touch base on that is that if you, and I want to say this in a broad way, right? Because it's something I learned as an investor over time. If you can't trust the team with the contract, then you shouldn't be invested in them in the first place. The reason I say that, right, is because your intentions for buying, in a nutshell, wouldn't be based on you backing a team or the token. It'd be for other reasons, right? Because if you can't trust the team not to call functions, it's the same as when people go, hey, the liquidity, right? But some of these projects have, 10, 20 million in the treasury, which they can dump. So ironically, it makes no difference, right? So if you trust them with that, you should, if you're invested in the token, you shouldn't be questioning yourself whether you trust the team. That's just one of my, main things is that I wouldn't invest in a token if I didn't trust in the team, right? So with regards to contracts, right? Of course, our contract is upgradable, and there's reasons why the contract is upgradable. One, to improve security. Two, to further ever have to avoid to go to a V2 or an airdrop, or unless we completely change the token due to whatever reason, we won't ever have to go, hey, we need to turn the token off an airdrop and move to a V2, which, as you guys know, every time a token moves to a V2, usually it tanks. And what it allows us to do is say, hey, we've got this now. We can integrate things in the future to the contract. Now, the contract is on the multi-sig. So any function being called in the contract has to be done on the multi-sig. Any changes have to be pushed through a security application to then to push it, and then it has to go through a multi-sig. So not only do you have to verify it, does SHIB have to verify it first, then 3 additional team members have to verify it also. So even if you want to sit there and say, yes, SHIB owns all the contracts, SHIB would never just be able to sit there and go, hey, I'm going to withdraw liquidity, or hey, I'm going to turn rebases off, because essentially 4 people would have to push a contract upgrade. And it would have to start by SHIB accepting the proposal for the contract upgrade. But we'll have an AMA in the future where if we can have more technical questions. Maybe we can get Kinsu up here so he can answer any questions anyone has for the contract. Maybe we can do that during the week. I'll see with Kinsu. But essentially, in a nutshell, is if you can't trust the team not to call certain functions on the contract, which are only there purely for either security or to help the protocol, then yeah, you shouldn't invest. That's just my 2 cents based on how I view projects. If I trust the team, I trust them with my funds. When I purchase the token, I trust them with my money. When they got the treasury there, I trust them not to misuse that. So essentially, it's the same with the contract. So everything's upgradable. Everything's able to add extra abilities to. So yeah, that's one way. That's just one thing I wanted to sort of say in regards to security and trusting teams.
Sure thing. Speaking of the future, how do you imagine the upcoming week, month, 6 months, etc. of Protocol X looking like?
Yeah, so I expect a ton of work. Obviously, highs and lows are going to come up, and adjustments are going to have to be made over time from our own personal strategies, I'm sure, in order to facilitate growth. But like I said, we have our strategy set out. This is what I'm running the platform on, and this is how I want it to go further from here. So we have our rebases that'll decrease over the months there. We have these outside revenue sources working. Ton tons of buybacks and burns early and often, get the NFTs live, get the decks live as well, and then we start building what I have as a more real world business idea, which we'll introduce at probably one of the crypto conventions at some point in the future. So we have a lot going on here in the next few months, but obviously I don't expect everything to be, super roses and peaches and everything like that. I'm sure there'll be some bumps in the road there, and we will address them accordingly because we have our strategies that people invested in. So we have to make those work one way or the other. A lot of the AMAs, I used one little analogy where I said if you have a house and it's on one stilt and that one stilt cracks, then the house falls over. But if you have 10 stilts under that house and one cracks, well, then you have plenty of time to go in, repair, replace, do whatever to that one stilt as the 9 other hold it up. And that's how we're, orchestrating this whole strategic thing that we're trying to build here is have 10 different things working in the beneficiaries of the sustainability of the protocol. And if one falters a little bit, you fix it, you refine it, you move forward, and you still have the 9 others holding up the house so that it doesn't fall out and project vanish like some others may have done out there in recent days.
That's very good points. That stability is very important given for the protocol.
Yes, I would very much so agree. Sorry, go ahead.
When the NFT doors are released, will X keys also be released alongside them?
Yes, so essentially X keys will be released. It will be a whole mechanism, sort of like a DApp, right? And we want to make it interactive and fun. We want to sort of make it engaging. So essentially it will be a DApp, everything will launch, you'll be able to purchase specific things and it'll all work together. But yes, they'll be released on the same day. So you could buy, your comment NFT and then upgrade it straight away, right? If that's what you so want to do. More information will come. There'll be complete Medium articles on it, and we'll go from there, of course.
Because when I was looking at the Medium article about the doors, I think it said that not every door is going to be available at launch.
So that
Maybe
is,
I was just mistaken.
yeah, sorry, go ahead there. So that is they may or may not be. I know in the Medium I had it so they weren't, and the reason I did that was I didn't want such a small amount of people to be upgrading immediately to the new tiers right away without a substantial amount of the lower tiers created. I think I've kind of moved away from that, but I'm just letting you know my personal thought processes there was, and it was actually in reference to that OG top one that you have up there when I was like, hey, if I make those upgradable, then those without any real money into Protocol X can just immediately upgrade and start taking slots away from other people. And obviously I changed that. I made it so those OG ones are not upgradable. So that's a good catch. I think I'm going to be able to release all of them on the same time now that I fixed that one potential conflict that could occur.
Will doors be tradable or transferable between wallets?
They will be transferable, but they will not be tradable on open markets. So like no NFT trade or OpenSea or whatever. But you can trade them, transfer them between wallets one at a time.
Initially, they won't be tradable. Obviously, the initial thought is for them not to be tradable because it's a way to invest into the protocol and receive long-term sort of obviously benefits from it. So for the entirety of the protocol, right? It's an investment into the protocol. But what they will do eventually is once we have different things released, you'll get airdrops and such and receive further NFTs, whether that be in gamification as such or anything that is, built into XShares down the line. Don't want to go into too much detail until things are confirmed. But yeah, so essentially it will just be a ticket in a nutshell that you hold that has different perks. And obviously the perks will grow over time. Once we have more things we're able to add to it and get it to be able to have more ROI, more beneficial if you believed early on in the project and you've got that, one of the, very limited rares and the project blows up, then essentially we can obviously look into seeing if we can make that tangible for people if they want to trade them and obviously have a royalty fee as such. So then, effectively, if people do want to trade, they can have value. But we'll look at that at a later date. But off the bat, they're not going to be tradable, no, because what we don't want to do is cause dilution. And obviously, if people start essentially panic selling them, or people don't want them, or if someone buys 100 of them and then just lists them really, really cheap, and it negates the whole effect of them being a long-term passive income stream for holders, right? What you don't want to do is if you're a long believer in the project and then you've spent, whatever X amount of PTX to upgrade your revenue shares sort of system, right? And you've now got a couple of them that are maxed out, you're super excited, and then a whale comes along and dumps them, then effectively that's made your investment, a lot less than what you invested in. If people are able to trade them right from the get-go without them being sort of sold out, effectively what they'll do is render the burn system useless, so people won't bother using X keys. They will just buy them off people, probably at a cheaper rate if people do panic sell them or people dump them. So what we want to do is keep it consistent, have that burn mechanism built into X keys, be able to use X keys in future gamification, and just keep it consistent without there being any, possibilities of people dumping it, etc., or causing people to, panic sell it off, etc. So I've got a question from chat. Obviously, Ari, I know you said you have to pop off, so thank you for your questions, man. We appreciate when you come into the AMAs. Obviously, I know I sound a bit weird tonight. It's because I've got a really bad sore throat, so apologies if I sound a bit grovelly or don't sound extremely excited as I usually am. It's purely just because I've got a sore throat. I think I've got a little bug. But yeah, Ari, thank you for coming up. I appreciate you hopping on the stage and asking so many questions. I know you think you annoy me. You really don't. I appreciate sometimes the harder questions. It's nice to be able to get the community answers they may not know they needed. So it's always good. So I really do appreciate your questions, Ari. I have got a question in the chat now. From Worst Wishes, this has probably been asked before, but initially at launch, how do you plan to stop people from selling off? So there's not really a way to stop people from selling off, right? You can't just say, hey, we're going to do this just to stop people selling off. Obviously, we're going to have incentives. We're going to keep building. That was one of the reasons why we didn't want to prolong the launch anymore, right? Because what we didn't want is people to go, ugh, another delay, get bored and go, I'm just going to move on. Crypto moves really fast. A week in crypto is like a year. So if we just sat there and said, hey, we have no update for you guys, people will go, oh, you know what? Once this launches, we're just going to get out and move on. What we want to do is we want to build, we want to get the cogs turning, we want to have some fun, we want to grow the project, and we want to, market the project. You can't market a project when there's no pre-sale live and there's no token live, because essentially people are going to come, say, they're not live yet, and then just move on to the next thing. So we're going to have marketing from the get-go. I've said it numerous times. We've got them CMC connects, we've got the CG connects, we've got the trending connects, we've got all of that, the Certic connects. So we're going to utilize all of them, build an efficient plan where we can get the CG, get the CMC, get the trendings, get the hype on DEX tools, get all of them platforms pumping. And then obviously guerrilla market in the sense of, get the name out there, maybe some adverts. A lot of the time, and I'll speak on a genuine point of view, the banner ads on PooCoin and stuff like that, they just don't work. It's such a diluted market. They just don't work. I mean, I've seen people spend, 75,000. I spoke to a couple of projects that actually spent, like 60 or thousand on their banner ads for their pre-sale, and it didn't do too well. Purely because, it's such a high cost per click that the traffic actually isn't worth it. So we're going to work with numerous people. We're going to reach out to other projects and our partners to speak to them. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to waste money, right? And what we don't want to sit there and say is, hey, we know it all. One thing that's a big misconception in this space is projects shouldn't work with other projects. I don't know why, but it just seems like a lot of projects don't work together anymore, right? It's all about building each other and growing each other in the space. So we're obviously going to use our own marketing strategy that we have planned, our connections to get all them trending, to get everything listed. And then obviously speak to other protocols, what worked for you guys, what was better. Instead of just gambling on it, we want to use proven methods. And that's exactly what we're trying to do from the get-go, is have them methods that we've used, trialed and errored, whether it be personally, whether it be from experience, and not do them in our, protocol to make it a sort of something that could be sustainable. And that's why we don't sit there promoting a crazy APY. We want it to be sustainable. It's something we genuinely want to work on for the long term. It's something we're doing full time, something that we believe in, and something that we want to grow from, right? So we don't want to waste money. We don't want to, ruin anything that we can grow from. We don't want to sit there and be snobby. We want to take criticism. We want to take feedback and advice from projects and, the holders as well. So we're working on that now. We've got our plans. Things will come. We're going to launch CMC and CG straight away. We're going to get a buy and hold contest set up straight away, have a heavy marketing push on that, and grow from there. But yeah, so I think we're sort of coming to the end of the AMA now. We've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes. And we'll try to do another one during the week if we have a chance. And obviously we'll hop in some calls after launch tomorrow to have a chat with the community as well. And do some events and stuff as well. I'll get that all lined up. Just to touch base as well, if you did win any prizes, I'm going to reach out either tonight or in the morning, get everyone's addresses, and then we're going to multi-send that over to you guys. I'll probably do it tonight in a couple of hours. So keep a lookout if you did win any prizes whatsoever in any of the events. But I'll pass it back to Shib to close out.
Yep, so I know we still have quite a few questions in here. We will answer all of them on a variety of other AMAs. There's a couple great ones in there, but we do have other things as well. We're running just a little bit up, so definitely want to thank you guys for jumping into this weekly community AMA here with Protocol X on this, again, Monday, August 22nd, 2022. Please join us. This is a weekly event. Mondays at 8 p.m. UTC, community AMAs. We should try to get a second one later this week. Maybe we'll try to do Twitter Spaces, maybe Discord. Who knows? Who cares? We'll let you know about that. Remember, claims should be tonight. We'll give out some information there. And then we will go live tomorrow. 6 p.m. UTC is when we will go live. So please be a friend, tell the world. Let's get ready to kick this week off with a pretty good blast there in the next couple of days. So shout out to Brand, shout out to my team, shout out to everyone in the community for holding with us, and shout out to our launch coming up tomorrow. So appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you all very soon.